Steve from the garden. Here we made it. It's time to start transplanting the onions into these beds. Just as a recap, I did have two varieties of onions. I started this year from seed, one variety being Candy and the other variety being Patterson. And as far as these beds go, I'm going to put a double row in each bed. And I treated these beds differently in the fall in terms of topping them off and getting them ready for spring. So the bed on your right was topped off with my Johnson Sioux bioreactor compost, and the bed on your left was topped off with commercial compost. So in order to do like a good comparison between the two, I'm going to plant half of each bed with Candy and the other half with the Pattersons. Checking in my soil temperature here. Looks like we're sitting right about 45 degrees, which will be plenty good enough for transplanting the onions. Here's a view of the onions. So on your right is the Candy onions, and on the left here are the Pattersons. And if we look at the stems, we got nice healthy stems here that we can transplant in. Since I have more onions than I need, I try to choose the very best plants from each variety to plant into the beds. Now I will put some additional onions in another bed over in that way. Not that I need to grow more, but I'll grow some and I'll be able to give those away to some friends. The first thing I'm doing here is I'm putting down some balanced organic fertilizer. That's to give a little shot of nitrogen and phosphorus into the soil. And I'm going to use a hard rake to work that into the soil before I start doing my initial planting. I'm just using the straight edge of the hard rake, kind of work that into the soil. The next step was to put some screws in the side of the bed and run some string down the side, just to use as a guide for planting. I went 4 inches off the bed. I'll do 5 inches in, and there's 8 inches between these two rows. For the Candy onions, I'm going to be doing 6 inches on center. So every 6 inches I'll have a plant. For the Pattersons, which are a little bit smaller onion, I'm going to do like a 5 inch on center. I laid down tape measures so I can do my spacing. That way it's easy for me to follow where every 6 inches is, and I can just put an onion in each of those spots. With that ready, I just need to pull out my onions. I'm going to do a little close up here. So this is what I ended up with. So you got the onion plant and then like a little root ball with the roots, and I'll be able to put that right in the soil. Pop that first one in, fill in the dirt. Got the second one, pop that in, fill it around with dirt. Like on the first one here, we got 6 inch spacing. These are the Candy onions I'm doing first. Go in, find my spacing, pop it in. If you end up with the double like this, it's actually very easy to just kind of pull these apart. Then you can plant each one individually. My tape measure here, because I'm going every 6 feet. So basically it's on the foot and half the foot. And my tape measure has a little marking here for where the 6 inch mark is at. So makes it easy to get that spacing where you need it. I finished with the Candy onions for this bed. So now I'm moving on to the Pattersons. And that spacing on the Pattersons for me is going to be 5 inches. I was going to say another thing you could do if you get doubles is you don't have to separate them. You can actually plant the doubles and do like a little multi-sowing. Charles Dowding over in England does some of that, and it seems to work out pretty well for him. I did a little experiment last year with that, and I mean, it worked out okay. I think I still prefer the single sowing though. As far as how deep I'm planting these, I'm putting them down about a 1/2 inch. So it's just coming up part way on the bulb. It's the next morning. I had finished filling out this bed yesterday, but then I had to take my kids to a dentist appointment. I have the hoops here so I can put floating road cover on to add some frost protection. So with that done, I'm ready to start on the next bed. I got my initial lines and all that laid out, and I already did the fertilizing, so I'll get started on that. I got both beds planted now with the onions. I got the hoops put in on this new bed. I forgot to mention at the start of the video what my planting time is right now. And today marks 8 weeks before my last frost date. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the floating roll cover on. And I'll use these like spring clips to secure them to the hoops. I'm not going to do that just right now because we're supposed to get a little bit of rain, and I'd like that rain to get onto the onions, even though I did water them in. So I'll do that either late this afternoon or tomorrow sometime. That's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you got something out of it, and we'll see you on the next one.